Mother of God. Is that a real title? Can you call Mary that? Should you call Mary that? In 431 AD, a bishop named Nestorius had thoughts on this. Here's what happened. Gentlemen, I've been thinking. Mary gave birth to the human Jesus, not Jesus the God. So we should call her Mother of Christ, not Mother of God. Simple, clean, theologically precise. Anyone? You just called the Mother of God not the Mother of God? Technically, in front of everyone? If you would just let me describe to you the two persons of Christ. Hey yo, there's a mob outside already? Yeah, they heard and they low-key look mad. I just said it like 5 minutes ago. It's a really big mob. Did I leave the stove on? Hi, I'm Jet, and today we're gonna be talking about the Council of Ephesus in 431 AD. And this one's a doozy. Alright, so in my last video about like church history, we went over the Nicene Creed, which basically encompasses the first two ecumenical councils where the church came together and basically defined the Trinity. And today we're going to be talking about the third ecumenical council, which gave Mary her title, literally caused a riot, and somehow clarified the nature of Jesus at the same time. One council. A lot going on here. But let's first talk about Nestorius, Archbishop of Constantinople. Very important, very confident guy. Maybe a little too confident, but Nestorius had the problem with the word Theotokos, which is a Greek word meaning God-bearer or Mother of God. Christians have been calling Mary that for a while at the time, and Nestorius looked at that and said, actually, no. Let me say something smart that makes me a heretic. His argument was this. Jesus has two natures, a divine nature and a human nature. Mary gave birth to the human nature, not the divine one. So calling her Theotokos, or Mother of God, is technically inaccurate. She should be called Christokos, Mother of Christ, which sounds fine until you realize what he's actually saying. He's essentially splitting Jesus into two different beings, a human Jesus and a divine Jesus existing separately, which would imply the person who died on the cross was the human Jesus, not God himself. And that changes everything. The church had just spent two councils of 56 years establishing that Jesus is God and fully man. And Nestorius basically said, I ain't having it. If his casserole's burnt, he's gonna make sure that everybody else's is too. I would like to make a quick note that Nestorius probably never burnt a casserole. I'm just using it as a comedic reference for this video. That part is not historically accurate. Okay, thank you. Anyways, everyone lost their minds. Enter Cyril of Alexandria. If Nestorius was the guy who came into the room way too confident, then Cyril is the guy who walked into the room and immediately started taking names. Cyril was the Archbishop of Alexandria. He read what Nestorius was teaching and wrote him a letter. Let me read you how it opens. When our Savior says clearly, "He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me," what is to become of us? From whom your holiness requires that we love you more than Christ the Savior of us all, who can help us in the day of judgment? Or what kind of excuse shall we find for thus keeping silence so long with regard to the blasphemies made by you against him? So this man basically opened up the letter saying, do you expect me to love you more than Christ? This is not a polite letter. This is a declaration of war written in cursive, okay? Nestorius wrote back to Cyril calling him a wrangler and a heretic, which did not help the situation at all. So Cyril wrote again, except this time he ended it with 12 anathemas. 12 statements basically saying, if you believe in what Nestorius is teaching, you are outside of the church. Here's the first one. If anyone confess not that Emmanuel is in truth God, and that the Holy Virgin is therefore Mother of God, for she hath borne after the flesh of the Word out of God made flesh, be he anathema. Be he anathema. That's church speak for you're done, bro. But Nestorius read that and wrote his very own 12 anathemas right back. At which point both of them said, we're not doing this by letter anymore. We are settling this in person. And that, my friends, is how you get the Council of Ephesus. And yes, I just called you my friends. If you want to be my best friends, please subscribe. If you subscribe, you automatically become my best friend. I'm trying to collect them. Thank you so much. Anyways, the Council of Ephesus was chaotic from the start. Cyril showed up early, and I mean early on purpose. Nestorius supporters from Antioch were still making their journey and hadn't arrived yet. And Cyril looked around, counted the bishops, and said, you know what? I think we have enough people. Let's get started. He opened the council without them. Nestorius ends up refusing to show up. 3 times they sent someone to his door. 3 times he said no. So Cyril read his letter out loud at the council. The bishops declared them heretical, and Nestorius was condemned. The whole thing took 1 day, and then the mob found out. Yeah, remember those people outside? The people who showed up immediately when Nestorius made his announcement? They had been waiting outside the building this entire time. And when the verdict came down, Nestorius condemned, Theotokos affirmed, Mary officially the mother of God, they lost it. Of course, not in a bad way, in a more of like celebration way. People were in the streets, torches everywhere, crowds escorting the bishops back to their lodges while singing and cheering. One eyewitness described the whole city was lit up like a festival over a theology verdict. That's how much this word meant to people. Theotokos, mother of God. It wasn't just a title, it was a statement about who Jesus is. And the people outside that building, they knew it. Now, you might think this is over, but it actually isn't. No, it's not over at all. It gets way more deep. When Nestorius' supporters from Antioch finally made it and realized the council was held without them, they were absolutely furious. So they did what any reasonable group of bishops would do. They held their own council and condemned Cyril. So for a brief moment in 431 AD, both sides had officially condemned each other simultaneously. 2 councils, 2 verdicts. This is complete and absolute chaos. The emperor even had to step in and say, "Alright, everybody calm down. Condemnations stay only temporary while we try to figure this out." Which meant for a hot minute, both Cyril and Nestorius were technically condemned by somebody. Eventually, everything got sorted out. Cyril's verdict stood, and Nestorius' verdict... Yeah, so whenever the AC turns on, the audio gets really cruddy, so I have to stop every single time that it turns on. But it's the summertime, and it's really hot, so this happened like 3 times. Alright, let's get back to what I was saying. That is until you find out Nestorius spent his years in exile writing. He produced a long defense for himself called The Bazaar of Heraclides, where essentially he argued that he never taught what they actually said he taught, that he agreed with the council's conclusion, just not with their terminology, that the entire thing was just a big old misunderstanding. Whether that's true or not, historians still debate, but what's not debatable is what happened to his followers, because they didn't disappear. No. They formed their own church, the Church of the East. And that church spread, not just a little. We're talking Persia, India, Central Asia, all the way down to China. By the end of the 8th century, there were more Nestorian Christian communities further east than any other branch of Christianity at the time. There are still Nestorian Christians today. A heresy condemned in 431 AD became its own branch of Christianity and survived over 1600 years and spread across an entire continent. Which brings me back to the title of this video, the most controversial title in church history. Because here's what's wild. Most Christians today say Mother of God without even knowing this council ever happened. They sing it in hymns. They say it in creeds. They put it on Christmas cards. I actually don't know if they put it on Christmas cards. I kind of just added that to give it a little bit more pizzazz. But they have no idea that 1600 years ago, a mob stood outside of the building in Ephesus, waiting to find out if that title was going to survive. And most Christians I would push back on that title, who would say calling Mary the Mother of God feels like too much. Also don't know why the church defended it so fiercely. It wasn't about Mary, it was about Jesus. Fully God and fully man. One person, inseparable. That's what was at stake outside of that building. That's what the mob was waiting for. And somehow one word settled it. Theotokos, Mother of God. It survived a counter-council, an exile, 1600 years of church splits, and a guy who really should have checked if his casserole was burning before he opened his mouth. And it's still there. It's a very compelling thing to look into. I think we should all collectively do more research into the history of our faith, the history of the church, see where all these ideas come from. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the video. I guarantee you, Cyril probably would have wanted you to subscribe. He seemed like the guy who kind of needed to be right about everything. So I recommend you listen to him. And yeah, that's about it. Okay,